I think that as a sort of subgenre of classical music, the concerto is something that's very unique and really allows for a special relationship between various performers and the audience. With a concerto, you have the major forces of an orchestra, which has much color and much ability to create different dramatic scenes. And then you have a voice, or in some cases 2 or 3 voices, that you follow throughout the narrative. So a concerto really gives the opportunity for communicative power to take you on a fantastic journey, and one that can be both personal and epic in scope, depending on the piece. And there's a lot of room for play with that. To allow young musicians the opportunity to do that, especially with such a high-level orchestra of their peers, is a very great chance for them to dig deeper into what it is to be a performing musician and to learn how to manage that responsibility that comes with having that voice. It's usually technically quite difficult, and they've spent much time not only on the notes but on the interpretation, and then to communicate that not only with the audience but also with their colleagues on stage, and to do that in a way that does sort of pop out of the texture. You're the soloist, but also shows respect for everyone else. You cannot do it without any one member of the orchestra. Everyone is important. So to be able to manage that relationship with the orchestra and also with the conductor is a very valuable learning experience, and it's also great for the community to be able to see a few of the familiar faces highlighted as stars. Our event at the Santa Barbara Museum of Art is going to be something that I think will be slightly unusual but very interesting. I've begun to think of it as a musical installation. We'll have various groups performing at any given time. You will be able to see one of 3 groups performing. And this material will be repeated, but not quite enough for you to catch everything unless you find yourself in a gallery between 2 groups and listen to 2 performances simultaneously. But the basic idea is, of course, the marriage of visual and auditory art forms, and music and art have a long history of being inspired and based off of each other. In some cases, that will be a very direct correlation. There's a room that has a wonderful exhibit about capitalism and words of Karl Marx on the wall, and in that room we'll have some Prokofiev at one point. In another room, Beethoven and the 19th century paintings. But sometimes a juxtaposition is also just as interesting. I think having Bach in a room of modern art with a towering sort of sculpture in the middle is also a grand statement, and in other cases, some decisions will be made purely for acoustic reasons. But as a whole, I think the idea is to be able to be free. It's an installation, so it's not really going to be moving. It'll be somewhat fluid, but I want the participant, the audience, to be what is fluid, to be able to wander around as they would in a museum that's just full of art, and to have different experiences in different rooms, see the correlations, the juxtapositions, and sort of create their own experience. At Studio 240, I will be playing a program which mixes both old and new solo music for the cello. Chronologically, Bach is where it really begins for the solo cello, and I'll be playing some of that to sort of set up everything else that is in the program. I'll be playing Appalachia Waltz by Mark O'Connor, which is a beautiful, almost minimalist sort of song. Even though it's a waltz, it has a very, very prominent singing quality and is very, I think, indicative of American music, especially from that part of the country. I've also written a solo piece which I'll be performing. This was written for a collaboration at Grace Cathedral in San Francisco, and this piece is called Riding Light, and the idea is that you are following or riding a beam of light as it travels through various atmospheres. You have the space, the atmosphere of space, and you have earth, and you have water. So all of these elements playing together with the motifs that I've written. Along with that, I will also be performing a piece by Matthias Pincher, Assonanza Figura 5, which is a very ethereal and beautiful sort of tone world that Matthias has created. It's short and extremely powerful and effective. George Crumb's Solo Sonata is a very beautiful, moving, and at times intense piece. Unlike some of his other works in the way that it plays with tonality, it's very accessible.